Hey, thanks so much for joining us here on 3 News Plus, or however you may be watching this. I'm Mike Gillespie, 3 News anchor, and I'm joined by the Port of Corpus Christi CEO Kent Britton, and it's always a pleasure, Kent, to get to talk with you, and we appreciate you coming by our studio.
I'm always happy to be here, Mike.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Several things I want to get to that I think folks would be interested in talking about.
We've got a lot going on.
You do. I know you had a State of the Port event. I'm going to get to that in a minute because I think there were some highlights there maybe that you can share with us about that. Right now, I think everyone is talking about and thinking about the deconstruction of the old Harbor Bridge. And I know we want to clarify for folks, that's a TxDOT-driven project. That is not a port-driven project.
But it's sitting 55 feet from the end of my building. So.
But when you get up and look out your window, you can't help but see it. And I know it affects the port. So let's talk about a couple of things in that regard. First of all, just to clarify for folks, it's not necessarily you who picks up the phone and says, close the ship channel, open the ship channel. There's more than that, right?
There is. So we have a great relationship with the U.S. Coast Guard. But at the end of the day, their waters are the United States. And the Coast Guard makes the decision on whether the ship channel is going to be restricted or even closed. We're normally dealing with things that are unplanned, right? So a towboat sinks in the channel, or we get some sort of debris in the channel or something like that, or a hurricane. This is a long planned event, and so this one has been, from a channel closure perspective, this one's easy. But we have set up an incident management team that's ourselves, Flatiron Dragados, TxDOT, and the U.S. Coast Guard. And we're hosting them at our building, and anytime there's a decision to be made, that group's getting together, sitting down in a room and saying, all right, how's the best way to handle this? Mm-hmm. Like I said, though, when it's something planned like this, we can minimize any disruption to commerce. So, for one thing, when they're not directly working on the bridge, they'll move that barge out of the way, and you guys have probably been keeping up with it because I know you got a camera over there on the Lexington. Once they move the barge out of the way, we move ship traffic back and forth, anything that's waiting to get in or out of the inner harbor. And so this is a minimal disruption for us from a channel closure perspective.
You know, you say minimal disruption. I know that I think it was Saturday afternoon when the ship channel was closed and they began the work of hopefully lowering that span. But there have been a couple of delays, and so now this drags on for a few days. Give me an idea of, I mean, you say minimal disruption. It's got to impact how you guys do business in some way, though, right?
Sure. So there are a couple of things to consider. First and foremost is safety. And so we want to make sure that everyone in the waterway and surrounding the waterway is acting in a safe manner. That's the goal of the other parties who I just mentioned are part of the incident management team. And so that's our first priority. But when there are openings there, and we can move the barge Prometheus, which is the one that's going to catch the bridge when it comes down, we're moving ships and barges back and forth and try to keep our customers from losing any money on ships that might have to wait. Mm-hmm. But in the shipping business, waiting is often part of the game. And there are times when, particularly as we were doing the channel improvement project with dredging, where ships had to wait for a day or sometimes even a day and a half to come in because the dredge was working in the channel and doing those kind of things. This is what's going on up above is not business as usual. It's a big deal for this community. What's going on in the waterway, though, is business as usual.
All right, so ships are still able to get in and out. You're just having to maybe arrange schedules a little bit, but it's not disrupting the port in any way.
No, and I will tell you, just as a little aside and as a little inside baseball on the port, we learned a lot in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey about being able to convoy ships in and out. And so we did that during the channel improvement project as well. So in the aftermath of Harvey, you had a bunch of ships that were waiting to get in. You had a bunch, not a bunch waiting to get out, mostly to get back into the port. And man, we brought them in convoys of sometimes up to 6 ships. So you'd send all the harbor pilots out at once, go get these ships, and they were just following each other one after the other. We saw that again during the channel improvement project. And it's a cool thing to see because you can look across the bay and sometimes you can see 3, 4, 5 ships lined up heading in, and they just keep passing my office one after another, which is really cool, and going to the various docks. And so we just continue that. We have a great group of pilots, we have a great group of tug operators, line handlers, all those folks work together, and with our harbor master office and make sure that we stay coordinated and get those ships in and out as quickly as we can.
Since we're talking about ships and bridges, let me just ask this. Having the new harbor bridge there, has that worked out so far to your expectations?
It has, and so we've heard from a lot of potential business that could come in here that wants to take advantage of the new depth from the ship channel improvement project. We went from 47 feet to 54 feet, but also the height restriction that's been lifted now when they know, at some point the old harbor bridge will be gone and the new harbor bridge, which is the bottom of that, is taller than the very top of the old harbor bridge, right? So there are very few things, I can't think of anything we would potentially do that's going to be limited by that new harbor bridge. And so that will open the port up to opportunities to diversify and attract container business. And, we're trying to attract a shipbuilder to this region, and Chairman Todd Hunter would like to attract a cruise ship, to this region.
He has mentioned that a time or two.
He's mentioned it to me as well.
So a lot of potential there.
Yeah, so nothing happens overnight in this business, and I was just explaining to someone earlier today. When you attract new business, there's a lot that goes into that. There's site selection, and then there's a final investment decision from the company that's doing it, and then there's permitting, and there's site preparation, and then there's construction. These things all take years to happen. So we're on the very front end of what the new bridge could potentially bring to this area, but I have no doubt that it will, in addition to being an iconic structure for this region, right, that it will actually attract new business.
You have mentioned the ship channel deepening project, and I know we hit the milestone recently. And what's next on the timeline for that? Where are we with all that? I know for the most part we've said it's finished, but there's probably something else going on here, right?
Yeah, sure. So on the channel improvement side, there is always something going on at the port. So when I go out and talk to folks, I talk about our primary job, our primary role here is as the non-federal sponsor for the ship channel. And so we got one thing done, and it was a big thing. I mean, other than opening the port originally, this is probably the biggest thing the port had ever done. It was $625 million split. We paid a third of that. We didn't charge our customers. It opens up $250 million of transportation cost savings for our customers every year by being able to use bigger boats. It's a big deal. Now it requires us to go and deepen docks and deepen berths at the different terminals to allow them to use that deeper depth, because it doesn't help that the channel's deeper if your dock's not any deeper or not able to accommodate a bigger ship from a load-bearing perspective. So first and foremost, we're looking at which docks need to be deepened and how do we work through that in a systematic process. Secondly, the La Quinta channel, which runs out in San Patricio County, used to run down to the old Sherwin plant, the old Reynolds plant. Was actually dredged by Reynolds back in the 50s to get to that plant. There's all kind of businesses out there along that ship channel now, and it runs further. It runs all the way over to the Exxon Sabic dock, which is operated by Vopak, but it has Cheniere out there, for example. ArcelorMittal, which is a steel mill. There's a lot of stuff on that channel. That channel's still at the original 47 feet depth, or the prior 47 feet of depth. That's sufficient for the businesses that are out there. There are additional properties out there, though, that are yet to be developed, could benefit from a deeper channel. So we are taking a look right now at a study to widen and deepen that part of the ship channel. We're also then going to look at, as Cheniere continues to grow, and they use some of the biggest boats that come into the port, how do we create a wider channel between Ingleside, where they turn out of the La Quinta Channel, and Port Aransas? And because right now they can't move ships in two directions. So once a ship's heading out, you kind of have a 5-hour window where it's got to get out past Port Aransas, past the jetties, before they can bring another one in.
Oh, wow, okay.
And so how do we solve that problem for them as they bring more ships to the region and more economic development and prosperity to the region? How do we make it easier for them? I think of our job as how do we make our customers, both existing and future, how do we make their jobs easier from a channel perspective? So we're looking at La Quinta Channel, we're looking at taking advantage of the existing depth, the 54 feet, we're looking at widening parts of it to accommodate more business from Cheniere. So there's a lot going. My channel development guy, and 5 years ago we didn't even have a channel development department. We had a guy that worked under the engineering department. Now he's got his own department. He's got several people working under him because we stay busy with permitting and improvements and operations and maintenance, because the channel has to be continually dredged throughout the year, and we get $20+ million a year from the federal government to continue to dredge the channel and keep it at the depth that they dredged it at. Once they've spent their money on it, they want to make sure it stays that way.
Well, I bet they do. And you mentioned earlier, nothing in this business happens overnight. The ship channel deepening, widening project, that took years.
35 years,
yeah,
really.
35 years. So we're not expecting this to be done by Christmas over here.
Right.
You've got, which really points to the fact that in your role, you have to always be looking ahead, always be thinking ahead about, it's not just for today, but for the folks who come after us. What are we doing now that's going to impact them?
Sure.
And that's huge, right?
Sure. And so when you think about the channel as a great example, right? 35 years. That went through 3 executive directors. Harry Plomerity was the executive director who was sitting in my chair at the time that got started. 4 executive directors, I guess.
Wow.
Then you had John LaRue, Sean Strawbridge, myself, who was, I was fortunate enough to be the guy sitting in the chair when it got finished.
Yeah.
Although it was a hot day that we cut the ribbon on that. So that's instructive, right? 35 years. And so how do we position the port and the economic development that goes along with the port to best serve the community for decades to come? And so we're focused on diversifying business that comes into the port. Right now, 94% of our business is liquid energy. That's great. We're leaning into that. We do our best to support that day in and day out and continue to grow that business, because that is, to some extent, the lifeblood of Texas, right? Texas Oil and Gas contributed $28 billion in taxes to the state last year. When you start talking about having money to do water, to do property tax cuts, those kind of things, that money's coming from oil and gas.
Yeah.
And so we take that role very seriously, first and foremost. Then try to figure out, all right, what do we do to augment that? What do we do to support that? For example, attracting a container terminal operator would be a huge win for this community. That's jobs, and that's long-term growth here in the Coastal Bend.
Well, and I look at the agenda for the commissioners' meetings, for example, and I see a lot of contracts that are approved and things that that are going to happen in terms of business and jobs. Answer this for me. Do you keep an eye on, or how do the commissioners keep an eye on making sure that the folks who live here benefit from those kinds of opportunities?
So we have a couple of things, right? So one, on the commercial development side, so that's attracting new business, attracting new jobs, attracting new investment. There's been $65 billion of private investment in this region over the last 10 years. There's 5,000 people out in San Patricio County right now constructing Cheniere's expansion project. That's one side of it, right? The commercial side. But we also procure, $60 million worth of goods and services on an operating basis, and another $100 million worth of services on a capital construction basis. How do we keep that business here in the Coastal Bend also, and make sure that the folks who operate businesses here get to take advantage of that? And so we have a process where when we evaluate bids, there's an extra 10 points out of the 100 that we scored, so you can get a 10-point bonus by being a local business. When we get small quotes, so jobs under $100,000, we go out and we get 3 quotes. One of those always has to be local.
Yeah.
We try to make sure that we work with, so over at Del Mar College, there's the Apex Accelerator, which is a group that helps small businesses learn how to do contracting with government entities, so the port being one of those. And so, matter of fact, there's an event going on at Del Mar this morning from 10 to noon, I think, over at the Yorktown campus, where small businesses can come in and this Apex Accelerator will talk about the services they provide and say, all right, here's how you do business with the port. And then you can sign up on the port's website and you can see every bid that goes out and put in your bid for that business.
And that's huge.
We think it's important not just to bring new business here, but also to support
what's already
support
here.
our contractors and construction firms that are here.
If you're operating a business and you think, I could never do business with the port, well, maybe you could.
Oh yeah, listen, absolutely. And We have a target. It's that 80% of our construction work and contract work goes out to local businesses. That's often hard to judge. Sometimes
Yeah.
a company will be mainly headquartered in Houston but have an office here. Is that local, not local? We still think that's local. I mean, we're supporting those folks who are employed here. We try to be careful about that. We try not to be, we're a public entity, so we're also trying to provide the best value for that public money, right? It's not tax money. We didn't tax the residents to get it, but once it's in our coffers, then it's public money, and we try to treat it as public money, which has all kind of regulations also around how it can be spent. So we're doing our best to try to solve both sides of that issue here.
I know that your mantra as you lead the folks at the port has been, we want to be as transparent as possible.
Absolutely.
And you work very hard to try to do that. So let's talk about what is a huge issue, not just for the city of Corpus Christi, but now for surrounding counties, Nueces County, surrounding counties, water. What's going on with water? How are you guys working to try to offer maybe solutions to water problems and water issues, and maybe conserve what you're working with? Because we're not working with an unlimited supply here, apparently.
No, we're not. Also having this conversation earlier, I happened to be on the radio early this morning, but it's what everyone wants to talk about around here. I think we have to make sure we are addressing short-term needs, medium-term needs, long-term needs. There is a limit to what I can do. I'm not the water provider for the region. The city of Corpus Christi is the water provider for the region. I've tried to make that very clear in my 2.5 years sitting in this seat, that we're not trying to be the water provider for the region. One area where we were participating heavily, though, was a site that we have out on Harbor Island, which is across the channel from Port Aransas. We always viewed that as the only site in the region that could be expanded, not indefinitely, but almost indefinitely, to be as big as you wanted because of its proximity to the Gulf. So you can eliminate the environmental concerns that folks would have with discharging brine into the bay system, which above a certain level won't work, right? So the city had to do their own modeling and evaluate whether the Inner Harbor plant, for example, worked on an environmental basis. That's their responsibility. We looked at Harbor Island and we said, okay, here's a place that's sitting right on the Gulf, so going to be very expensive to pipe the water back inland, but you can build it out there, and if you decide you need 100 million gallons a day, 200 million gallons a day, 300 million gallons a day, and that's not what the Coastal Bend in all likelihood would need for this region, but the state is running out of water also, so there's a bigger issue to solve. Well, now you're in a location where you can do that in an environmentally responsible manner. And so we got approached by Nueces River Authority over a year ago, wanting to lease that property. We are a landlord port for the most part. We don't operate port facilities. We're treating this as no different than any other landlord lessee type relationship. They're leasing property from us out there. We had started the permitting for that, though, and so we are continuing with the permitting. The lease provides, though, that once those are done, then we'll turn those over to NRA as well, and then we'll get out of the way. What we are trying to do, though, on the side is advocate for water resources here, and we've been very clear. We think the city should be taking a look at all the alternatives, the full suite, because some of them might be short term, some of them might be long term, and anywhere in between. And not all of them are going to work, right? So you can throw out 5 options, and you'll probably be really happy if 2 of those come to fruition.
Do you get a sense, as you hear the talks and as you kind of monitor what's going on back and forth, do you get a sense that there is great interest from the city of Corpus Christi in Harbor Island?
So yes, as a long-term solution.
Right.
So Harbor Island, even by the NRA's estimates, wouldn't be producing water until December of 2029.
Which is important to note, because there's an impression that if we'll just pick one, then we'll have water by the first of the year. Not the case here.
Yeah, so it's something that I've been watching with some curiosity and just reminding folks. Desalination is it's expensive. It's probably your most expensive form of water. So it's what you do as, okay, I want to be sure that I have water, and I'm willing to pay for that certainty, right? But it's also your long-term solution. So neither the Inner Harbor plant nor Harbor Island is a solution for the next couple of years.
Right.
So we've got to either find some short-term solution, or Alan Holt's got to tell me that it's going to rain.
Or that it's going to rain
right?
a lot.
A lot. That's part of the problem is the lakes are now at a certain level that to recharge that reservoir is going to take probably several significant rain events. And so I want to make sure we get the messaging right, though. And when I say we, it's we when customers come to us and say, will you have water? We say you need to go talk to the city of Corpus Christi, because ultimately they're the water provider for the region, and they're going to get it from water wells or their own desal or groundwater or buying some portion of Harbor Island water when it's produced by someone else, something. But I'm hoping that the answer is, hey, I need water in 3 months. Do you have water in 3 months? Well, the answer to that's probably no, right? None of those solutions are coming online in 3 months. Hey, I need water in 4 years. Do you have water in 4 years? I hope the answer to that is yes. Because we've got 3 options in the short, medium term. We've got 2 options, for a long-term solution. We're going to figure this out, and we are going to have water to continue to grow from an economic. I sit on the board in an ex officio role, so I don't get to vote, but I'm there for meetings of the Economic Development Corporation, and that's the message we want to continue to give businesses who want to come to the Coastal Bend and relocate, because there's been even national reporting, right? Wall Street Journal and some other folks who have painted the situation as dire down here because we couldn't get resolved the long-term answer. Well, we've got a lot to do before we get to there. These are difficult problems. There are reasons this has not been solved previously, and
you've got a lot of smart people talking about it, working on it, and trying to figure out what's going to be the best solution, as you mentioned, for now and for later.
Right. So we're trying to get the messaging right also to customers who come to us and say, hey, I want to locate at the port. And so they often come to us first because they want to talk about the ship channel, and is there going to be docks that can be built, and will we put up warehouses, and will we help them with all the other things? But then their next question is, all right, I need water. Do you have water? And we're like, let's go talk to the city of Corpus Christi. Here's our perspective on it. And we'll help however we can. There are lots of folks who are looking to drill groundwater wells and potentially even desal brackish water. And to the extent that we're a large landowner, particularly on land that hasn't been developed yet, we're working with multiple groups around this region, including municipalities who are looking to drill water wells. And we're going to do everything we can to help within our capability.
But as you said, will you have water? That is the question that's being asked a lot these days. Let me jump to a couple of more things here. Recently, you celebrated the annual State of the Port. What were some of the highlights there for folks who didn't get to attend that?
Really great event. And if anybody wants to see it, it's out on portofcc.com, our website. The entire thing is out there. We kind of changed the format up a little bit last year, and so we went to kind of a 20-minute presentation from Chairman Engel. David Engel's our chairman. He's in his last year as a port commissioner. This is his 12th year. He'll be termed out at the end of this year. And then kind of a 35-minute roundtable discussion with important community members. And we started that last year, kind of this new format. It was successful last year. People liked it, so we stuck with it for this year. This year we had Christine Wetchell, who is vice president at Pin Oak, which is one of our large crude oil exporters. We had Nishita Singh, who is the general manager out at Chenier. We had Jesse Gilbert from the aquarium, so kind of more of a community perspective. And then we had Mark Escamilla from Del Mar College. And so they were able to talk about kind of the intersection of community and industry here. It was a great panel. It's a great discussion. We have needs, yes, but we have solutions to those needs. And, Dr. Escamilla, boy, I mean, energetic, and Christine and Nishita were both able to speak to the benefits of having someone like a Del Mar here, and A&M Corpus Christi, and A&M Kingsville to our south, providing workers for this ever-growing and evolving, because it's evolving as much as it's growing, workforce. And so blessed in this community to have partners like that. And then you talk with Jesse Gilbert from the aquarium. I mean, they're world renowned, and not just in the aquarium space, but also in the rescue center work that they're doing, and they're taking advantage of new technology and new ways to do things. And it did highlight also, so it kind of highlighted the economic growth we've had. It highlighted the partnerships that have been built in this community between industry and education, and how that needs to continue to grow, not just at the college level, which is what Dr. Escamilla was obviously talking about first and foremost, but at the primary school level also. And so, but then you talked about the community involvement of a place like the aquarium and how you bring folks into the community to visit, but also you're doing great work there. And he's taking advantage of new tools around AI and these sensing things where they can fly drones out there and they can actually spot a sea turtle who's in trouble, after a freeze event or something like that with his drone, because they've given the drone like this image of what the sea turtle looks like, and that drone just flies a grid out there over the water. Sea turtle reports the coordinates back to someone in the boat who can go actually pick it up and bring it back. I'll editorialize just a quick moment while I can. In this discussion around water and industry versus residents and that kind of stuff, you've seen a lot of folks, particularly on social media, and I spend way too much time on social media, as my kids tell me, reading the comments about, hey, man, maybe this community is not a great place. This community is a great place to live, and we are doing so many good things here. And I think State of the Port really highlighted a lot of those things. How we got folks out in the community, we got folks in education, we got folks in industry, all working together to make this a better place to live.
Go check it out on their website, as he mentioned. Let me get you with one more thing here. I know that global shipping has become a little unpredictable for some.
It's a great way to put it.
To what extent, as you look ahead to 2026 and beyond, how are you kind of protecting yourself maybe from some of that uncertainty, or making sure that the port is still able to do the job that you guys need to do?
Yeah, so we advocate through several trade organizations for solid federal policy around shipping and maritime. So we try to maintain an active voice in that and make sure there's some sense of rationality and reason that's brought to all of these discussions around tariffs and surcharges on Chinese ships and those kind of things. There is definitely some uncertainty going on out there. For most of what we do, which is energy, and mostly on the export side, most of that has been exempted from tariffs and surcharges,
right,
to some extent. So the impact on most of our customers has been minimal to this point. We do have one large grain export terminal operated by ADM. That business has been almost non-existent this year, which is hurting the farmers, not just in Texas, but throughout the Midwest, as big economies around the world like India and China are looking other places for their agricultural exports. And so there's got to be some balance that's created there. We heard with some of the discussions that have gone on in the last couple of weeks at the federal level that might be breaking a little bit. You're also seeing farmers, unfortunately, who are reaching capacity on storage and so are having to ship as well. There's only so much we can do on a local level other than advocacy and helping in other ways to make the waterway more efficient. Global markets are just what they sound like, right? They're global and they're way bigger than things we can control. We've seen a softening in crude oil exports as well the last 4 or 5 months.
Really?
Yeah, there's a little undercurrent of unease in the world economy that you can certainly sense. You can't really see it in a lot of the numbers, but you can feel it a little bit. There are other countries also that have been buying crude oil from places other than the U.S. simply to decrease leverage that the federal government may have over their country, right, by using energy. So all this is gonna work itself out. We luckily have big, sophisticated companies who are operating here. I mean, the biggest and most important companies in the energy space, which is where we currently operate in the U.S. and in the world, they have their own advocacy groups. So I think we're relatively sound.
Yeah.
But definitely something we're keeping an eye on.
Something you've got to watch. Well, why don't we end by just reminding folks that our port is a big deal in the world. You know, and again, I'm just amazed by the folks who don't recognize the grasp or the extent or the reach that our port has here in Corpus Christi. Something to be proud of.
So we have 60% of the crude oil exports that are going out of the United States leave from Corpus Christi.
Yeah.
It's a huge number. We're the #1 crude oil export port in the country. We're the #2 liquefied natural gas export port in the country. I get to travel, I'm lucky I get to travel around the world. When I go outside of this region, people go, oh my gosh, you're from the Port of Corpus Christi. Sometimes when I talk here, I will say, people go, oh really? We do all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a big port. It's an economic driver for the region. This is an important region of the country, and really proud to be here.
You ought to be. Well, Kent Britton, we do appreciate your time. Thanks so much for talking to us. Thank you for watching. We'll see you again soon.